All right, so here we have a picture of Imaizumi Yoshihiko and Nakanishi Natsuyuki's radical attack on the imperial institution, on the emperor in April 28th of 1961. That didn't happen. Yeah, let me read you the description by Imaizumi of what happened here. This is, by the way, how the book begins. This is a quote from Imaizumi, who is an artist and also the editor of the radical magazine Image, and later Kikan or Organ. Artists are incorrigible. If it isn't magnificently splendid, we don't like it. According to my plan, that thing would have been at least 5 meters high. It would have had to have been tempered glass, as lovely as the Crystal Palace. Moreover, at the very moment of its operation, it would fragment into splinters. But I was ill, weak, and with no status commanding that kind of money. It was rather like an ill person's delusion. There was no way I could make some tempered glass thing 5 meters high and 2 meters in length. And as far as fooling a glass shop into thinking I was rich, there was no way that anyone was going to buy it, since I'd be requesting illegal delivery to the Imperial Plaza. I was racking my brains over this. There was nothing I could do, alas, so the next day, the night on the eve of the Emperor's birthday, I sat down in a daze at the moat by Nijubashi, the bridge to the Imperial Palace. Excuse me. Mercury lights dimly lit the fog. Right-wing students roved about, looking to be the first arrivals for the celebratory palace visit. I was utterly exhausted. Aimlessly casting my eyes over the students, I noticed that in the darkness their outfits stood out like black mourning garments. So he's visiting the Imperial Palace, kind of sad because he's mourning his inability to construct and deliver a giant glass guillotine to the Imperial Palace gardens in time for the Emperor's birthday. What the heck? I'll explain the context. It's multi-layered. In Japan post-war, the new constitution renders the emperor as a symbol of the unity of the people. It's a very fishy status. Here we have the celebration of the emperor's birthday. Hooray! Wave the flag. And here's the right-wing manga writer Kobayashi Yoshinori's Emperor comic, and telling us about how the Emperor is the very center of free self-rule and the site of all wonderfulness. The transformation of the post-war constitution of the emperor took someone who was above the state's order in the Meiji Constitution, who gave the Constitution to people and stood behind and above the government, unreachable by it, and in whose name the war was fought, was turned into this symbol. In part, the argument was that, he could have ended up executed for that war. As it turned out, the Allied occupation, particularly the Americans, were very happy to have him around because it made the occupation go nice and smooth, and also put brakes on post-war democracy and made it. He's sort of the instance of the Cold War sort of dicey political figure that allows us to work. Okay, so he's a symbolic figure. Well, what better to execute a symbolic figure than a giant, spectacular art object? But symbolic is a fishy thing. Here's the emperor, and this is November 3rd. He's promulgating the new constitution that makes him a symbol, but of course he's promulgating it under the old constitution. So this is a god, and here we have people looks like people are bowing and acting like he's still the emperor. And one of the arguments I make in the book is that the Constitution is framed in a way to allow the state to have the alibi that it's still working under the name of the emperor, and allows it to have extra constitutional powers in all kinds of ways, including prosecuting art, doing a kind of social hygiene, having the right to interfere with how people think in a way that's decidedly extra legal, and that becomes an issue for Akasagawa Genpei. I should say too, by the way, Imaizumi had a particular bad reaction with the emperor. The emperor was involved in pushing to prolong the war to try and get assurances that he would be okay, and as a result, well, a third of the population of Okinawa ended up being killed, and many other things happened, including the death of Imaizumi's father in the last month of the war, and he felt that that was kind of needless and was not particularly happy with that. But the immediate trigger was just a couple months before the Shimanaka incident. In the late 1960, he's a rockabilly player, but also a writer, Fukuzawa Shichiro, published in the Central Review a nice little short story called The Tale of the Elegant Dream. And it had a dream sequence in which there's a revolution going on in Tokyo. And part of the dream sequence is the execution of the imperial family. And their heads fall off and roll away, and they sound like robots. And it's very funny and very grim, and provoked rightists, one of whom, one rightist group sent an 18-year-old assassin to the home of Mr. Shimanaka, who was the publisher of the Central Review. He wasn't home, so the assassin contented himself with stabbing his wife and then stabbing his maid, killed her. The wife was hospitalized. Here's Shimanaka at the hospital. And subsequently, Shimanaka went on and apologized sincerely for having dared to publish this terrible thing, and really felt very bad about it. And with this, we had the return of what's called the chrysanthemum taboo, where you don't make fun of the imperial institution, or you get stabbed a lot. The mayor of Nagasaki in the late 80s, for example, is stabbed for suggesting that maybe the emperor had something to do with the war. Okay, so this all pissed off Imaizumi and Nakanishi quite a bit, and they got quite involved in trying to plan this guillotine art object that they were going to truck over to the Imperial Plaza and set up. And had they been able to do it, of course, everyone would have recognized the connection to this short story and all of this, and but of course, there was no way in God's green earth they were ever going to get someone to deliver it. How could you just take that guillotine over to the Imperial Plaza, just drive around the police there, and and they didn't even have the money for it. So, but in a certain way, it was a kind of idea of having a kind of something adequate to the epical task of executing the symbolic emperor and severing the sort of supercorporeal connections of the post-World War II emperor system that was going on. Okay. And the place itself was also fraught. And so there's the immediate circumstance, and there's also the Imperial Plaza itself. Post-war, this is a poster by the May Day Committee, but this is in the Imperial Plaza. Here's all these demonstrators, people were arguing against the return of the emperor, who were arguing against the return of right-wing rule and all sorts of things, and would occupy this plaza. It was a protest space, and after 1950, it was prohibited to go there on May Day. People do go there, and actually 3 days after the occupation ends in 52, we have people shot as part of the demonstration. So it's a fraught space. In fact, here's some footage. Here we have the police person stopping the. This is heading across from Hibiya Plaza. Please ignore the let's drive carefully posted for something else.